Welcome to It's All Relational. We have a fun episode today where we are going to be speaking with Rochelle Pope, our former treasurer. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rochelle.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So could you describe a little bit to folks, what your role is? So you're the former treasurer. WAMFT has this interesting governance structure where people that, once you stay in certain roles, you have to stick around a little longer.
So true, so true. With the size of our organization and the amount of work the treasurer position holds,
Yeah.
it becomes really important after your 3 years of service that you help foster the next person and get them oriented, trained,
Right.
and brought up to speed because there's so much to what a treasurer does for our organization.
Absolutely.
Um, and I didn't know when I came in, so just like Terry, who's our new treasurer, is learning right now, and she has been trial by fire with lots of special projects just since day one. So what I do is kind of keep the system going, keep the
Mhm.
business of WAMPT going,
Right.
which is, everything from bank deposit check-ins and paying
Mhm.
bills and all of that until we can get the new treasurer all of the things they need in order to
Yeah.
function as treasurer, plus handle all the stuff that comes up as we go. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of training and a lot of support and, keeping everybody going because the treasurer is really involved in kind of everything everyone does.
Yeah,
So,
right. Yeah, you're the master of the coin, right? So
the,
tell me a little more about what brought you to WAMF in the first place.
yeah. Back in 2020, remember those days?
Mhm.
I was graduating from
Mhm.
my program, so brand new. I had attended a conference. I'm in the east side of the state, so had gone all the way to the west side, went to a conference. It's like, oh, these are my people.
Yeah.
Um, and Billy hosted a membership networking type meeting of like, what could we be doing at WAMFT? And, I spoke up. And so then I kind of said yes and was like, well, I said it. So now I got to be here.
Yeah.
So I joined Billy and
Yeah.
Asterisk Price.
Right.
So Billy Tyler, Asterisk Price, and I, at
Mhm.
that point, were doing membership work. And we developed a program called Building a Better Us
Yeah.
during the whole pandemic era.
Right.
And put together some really cool experiences.
Mm.
And from there, both Astric and I ended up coming up to the board as well. And
Yeah.
we've all been here for a while now. Astric
Okay.
just termed out of her years on the board, and
Yeah.
Billy is in her final year as president. She'll move to past president next year. So,
Right. Yeah.
and I'm past treasurer this year.
Yeah. Now, WAMFT is in a really interesting spot here. We're celebrating WAMFT 50, right? It's our 50th year of
Wow.
existence.
So exciting.
And it's really kind of been a remarkable journey, right? When you look at it, starting in 1976, when there wasn't even an MFT license at that point in time, right? And we've gone through a lot of different iterations and there's been a lot, of kind of twists and turns on our journey. But one thing that's really interesting from a treasurer perspective, right, is our tax designation. This is the part where people are really going to turn up the volume, right? What's our tax designation? Um, so, a lot of folks would assume that we are a nonprofit 501c3, right? And that is in fact how WAMP started, in 1976. But we changed from that original designation, and then we've recently changed back, right, to become a 501c3 again. So can you walk us through the history of that? Like, what led us to change from being a 501c3 in the first place?
Yeah. So, it started as a small group of people saying, let's get together. We're going to need to be around and move things in the right directions. That was back when you could put your shingle on the wall, right? There
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of credentialing. So that small group got started and created a 501c3 charitable nonprofit
Right.
and got us going as an organization.
Mhm.
And then in the mid 80s, credentialing and all of that became more important. And our profession was at risk of not being legislatively legitimized.
Mhm.
And so all of the funds really shifted into making sure that that happened for licensed marriage and family therapists. And
Legislative
so that
advocacy,
process,
lobbying, all of those things became
all the lobbying, yep, exactly. And so under IRS tax codes, you can only have so much money going to things like lobbying
mm,
if you're a 501c3.
okay.
So back then, small organizations, small budget, but almost 100% of the budget going to that.
Yeah.
IRS said you can't stay as a 501(c)(3). You're going to
They're
have to
always
become a
saying
professional.
stuff like that, you know?
Yeah. So the 501(c)(6) is a nonprofit, but it's not
Mhm.
considered a charitable
And that's
nonprofit.
what we
And
shifted to, I believe, in 1985, right?
correct.
Right. So
Correct. So
501(c)(6).
that change had to be made. It's hard to tell through the documentation like how that was led, but long story short, that's what had to happen in order
Right.
to do the legislative lobbying and
Mhm.
advocacy at the time to get us there.
Uh-huh.
So there's a fun number there of 13%. 13% of your budget can go to lobbying. Well,
Okay.
if you only have $5,000 to $10,000, 13% is not very
Well, very
much.
much. Yes. Right.
So start fast forwarding. 2020 again is when I kind of come in, and I have a fundraising background and a government background from my
Right.
previous lives and
Mhm.
careers. And it was like, what are we doing? And why are we not this? I started asking some of those questions, and people were like, well, we thought about it, right? And it was like, okay.
And one of the
So when
big
I came onto
issues
the
with your show, right, was that because as a 501(c)(6), people donating to our organization, that was not tax deductible automatically.
Oh yeah,
That was a
that
big
is exactly what I wanted to talk about right here. So thanks for that, Trevor. Yeah. So that's what became apparent was that under our
thing. Yeah.
501(c)(6), people were saying things like, I'd just give more. You don't need to do these other things. I would just give more if I could just write it off.
Yeah.
And, we're at a time where like we need that external funding. It doesn't just come from membership dues.
Right.
Membership dues only cover a part.
Right.
And so it became very apparent that we needed to look at how are we going to structure us for the future
Mhm.
at that
Yeah.
point. And so, but it's a heavy lift, right? It's
Yeah.
it's not just like make a phone call or sign a form. It's a
Right.
lot of research and a lot of background work, legal support.
Right.
So we listened, we started looking. The other thing we ran into is a lot of the nonprofit discounts out in the world
Yeah.
when we were going to find like locations for events.
Right.
We were finding out that they were like, we're at a point where we're only giving 501(c)(3)s
Yeah.
discounts, not
Right.
all nonprofits, which used to
Yeah.
be more of the case. So
Right.
there were other, not just the membership requests, but just also how are we going to, make sure membership dollars go as
Mhm.
far as we can.
Yeah.
And the 501(c)(6) designation was just becoming very limiting for us as
Yes.
an organization and for future, basically stability and growth.
Mhm.
We're going to be stunted there. So
Yes.
queue up the next steps.
Yes. And so your journey in these last few years, it's been a years long journey too, it should be said, right? It has been to get us into this new 501(c)(3), designation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So just a quick jump back a little bit further to 2018,
Mhm.
AAMFT
Yeah.
started looking at new designations for what they called interest networks at the
Right.
time. So there were geographic interest networks and independent
Well,
affiliates
yeah.
and I think a couple other
Yes.
designations. But WAMFT
Mhm.
was strong enough, had enough member support,
Yes.
and frankly, the budget behind them, the
Mhm.
savings account, because
Yes.
of the previous work,
Yes.
people worked really hard
Yeah.
to get us a really good budget. Because remember, back in 1985, not a lot of money, right?
Right.
Now we're moving up into 2018 and we've got a solid business strategy. It's
Yes.
not just membership dues coming in. And we were able to become what was known as an independent affiliate. And
Yes.
there's not a ton of them in AMFT.
No.
We're one of the best, so to speak, if you want to look at it that way, where we really had our ducks in a row at the right time.
Yes.
And we've been able to hold on to that. So
Right.
AMFT has restructured a few times. We've seen like the geographic interest networks disappear. We've seen like state by state disappear,
Right.
but we're still standing strong and in alignment with AMFT here in
So,
2026. So
yeah, and
that
that's
is
the thing.
the
That's
work of everybody that's come before that
so
we're standing on their shoulders.
and such a huge part of, why this is important, why we're thinking about this is maintaining that kind of financial discipline, and fiduciary excellence moving forward. Because like you're saying, there's not a ton of states, right? There's not 50 states that have independent affiliates. There's only a couple handful out there at this point. But the state level is where our license is held still, for everyone, right? And
Yeah.
it's still very important for us to have a really strong and robust organization, obviously, that is helping, kind of connect MFTs and do the lobbying as well. It's still a very important part of what we do, but like you're saying, it's not all of what we do anymore, right? So that makes sense for us to shift to this new 501(c)(3) model to maintain that, kind of financial stability. So what does this open up for members? Like, how is becoming a 501(c)(3) going to impact members?
Yeah. So now that we are a 501(c)(3), I want to like just make sure that's super clear. It's not
Yes,
going to happen. It has
it happens.
happened.
Yeah.
So, with the support of AMFT, with the approval of our board, we went through what ended up being about a 3-year process between research, development,
Right.
applying, and then waiting on pins and needles, so
Mhm.
to speak, until we could be approved. Government shutdowns were part of this timeline, right? All of this is
Yeah.
going on. um, we've been approved. And so now you've probably noticed that there have been some updates to our website, and there's been some things on receipts if you purchased anything
Mhm.
recently,
Mhm.
and our fundraising pages. So what that means for us is before, as a 501(c)(6), if you made a donation, you might be able to write it off through your business.
Right.
Again, we always recommend you talk with your tax professional, whoever you're using, to make
We're
sure,
not
but
giving you,
keep your receipts.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Scope of practice here. We're not giving tax advice, but yes.
Yes. Always talk with your tax
Mhm.
professional. But moving forward as a 501(c)(3), more of what you give to WAMFT is accessible towards that tax deduction,
Mhm. Yeah.
towards your taxes, towards your business expenses.
Right.
So,
Right.
but not just for people who own businesses now, also for people who
Individuals.
maybe work in community mental health,
Right.
maybe, aren't even necessarily doing therapy right now, but are donating to us.
Totally.
And that's a really critical piece is now outside dollars are, fingers crossed, going to be easier to bring across the
Yes.
boundary because it's not just going to be for people who are
Right.
professional
Right.
buyers.
Yeah.
So on an individual level, that's where it makes a big difference is what you can write off or include in your taxes, business
Mhm.
expenses, et cetera, and deductions.
And
Where
then
it gets really interesting for WAMF, though, we all know it's outside dollars, or I hope we all know this, right? Like our dollars from membership, we get dues, we get event registrations and all those things. Those are wonderful, but there is a lot of money out in the world to
Mhm.
support a lot of the work we do.
Mhm.
And we didn't have access to that because we weren't a
Right.
501(c)(3).
Mhm.
So grants would be a great example of that, the potential to do that. Of course, you need
Right.
people to be passionate about that and want to write for grants and
Right.
do that kind of
Mhm.
work. But now we at least are in a place we can do that.
Yes. Yes.
Um, Again, talking about like facility rentals, getting
Yes.
discounts on programs, projects, software, et cetera. There's a
Mhm.
lot of
Yeah.
discounting there, that we're now able to go access, again, make those
Mhm.
member dollars stretch even farther
Right.
than they used to.
Right.
And then, our taxes and things like that in and of itself, as a
Mhm.
federal charitable nonprofit, it changes the tax code for things like employment taxes. And
Mhm.
so there's going to be just different setup for certain
Yes.
things that
Right.
potentially are going to improve our ability to stretch those dollars
Totally.
to support the general public,
Right.
through the work we do as our
Mhm.
association.
Yeah, absolutely. And and you and I, we were working with will remain unnamed corporation last year on getting a sponsorship and money from them. And at the finish line, they're like, "Oh, you're a 501(c)(6). We're not going to be
Yep.
able to do this." So that sort of opportunity now is available to us, and that's really exciting. Not just now, but for the future. And I
Yeah.
wonder if you can kind of think about or talk to our members about like the importance of dollars, right? For us, and like what we can do with increased funding, what that'll be able to change for our organization.
Well, the sky's the limit is the bottom line on that, right? And
Yeah.
so we're always as a board, right, really trying to be fiscally responsible, really trying to make sure that we're honoring those dollars and
Mhm.
that where there is the return on investment that we're
Right.
honoring that. And it's not that we're trying to get rich quick off of anybody. It's that we're really trying to make sure that what we're giving you is the bang for the buck.
Yeah. Right.
And in that kind of culture and environment that has become WAMPed and what it's known for. And that's
Yeah.
one of my favorite things that we've been told is just like the culture of our organization is
Mhm,
so different. And
mhm.
we've had presenters come in from other places outside of our organization that just they come in and they feel like,
Yeah,
like this is home, this is family.
yeah,
And we want to keep that going. And the way to do that is to make sure we're
mhm,
living to our mission and our
yeah,
goals and our strategic vision and to continue our efforts and broaden them as much as we can and be inclusive as much as we can to those who aren't necessarily even LMFTs, right? We want to
sure,
serve the greater Washington and frankly the world. If
right,
you want to go that big, right? Of we are systemic
yeah,
and we are the leaders in systemic training
yeah,
and we're here for you. So
yeah,
come join us. Come
right,
come learn about this and
totally,
let us help spread that. So
right,
that's where making this shift, like,
mhm,
you gotta have it underneath you financially in
mhm.
order to build and grow and maintain, honestly, in the new world.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, and being able to offer more benefits to our members, scholarships, our member appreciation party that we do around the holidays, the annual conference, Spring Ethics Series, all of these things, can become even more exciting and better for members as we move forward and do this. And of course, the big thing that's still very important, legislative advocacy and continuing to, be able to fund keeping our license in good standing and being able to kind of advance other laws and regulations that are important for our field. So all of those things are, a big thing that we can continue to help, with increased dollars, right? As we move forward.
Yeah.
Um,
And those are the big like, those big ticket items, right?
mhm,
Like, where's conference gonna be? Let's
yeah,
keep in mind, back in the day, not that long ago, we would search for free venues,
yeah,
right? And we'd have, like, 25, 30, 40 people, and now we're over 100 people in person, plus people online, which now means we need online platforms and ways to manage all of that.
right,
And that's all that infrastructure to help us get the reach we see ourselves having and make it affordable and convenient for our members, but to really, really provide that service that people are looking for in the way they want to see it in 2026 and beyond.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Rochelle, you've done an incredible job, getting this through, and it's a huge part of your legacy, right? As treasurer and now past treasurer, as WAMFT, gets to this 50-year mark, setting us up for the next 50, right? And being able,
Yeah,
be financially, sound and have a strong foundation. So I just want to thank you on behalf of our members for all the work you did to get us here and get us past the finish line.
I appreciate that, Trevor. I took the lead on this project, but
Yeah.
this was not done alone. There was a board. I stand on the shoulders of everyone on the board and everyone who came before us to make this even possible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting. So get your checkbooks out, start writing, tax deductible according to your tax professional, donations and, we'll have a lot of fun here.
And that's just it, right? We do have a lot of fun, Trevor. So get your registrations, make your donations. If you guys don't know, go to wamft.org,
Mhm.
click on support. You'll see support WAMFT. There's direct donations like to legislative advocacy or the annual campaign.
Mhm.
Those are open right now, but it is our 50th anniversary, and Billy launched us off with $50 for the 50th. So
Oh,
anybody
yeah,
who's
that's a good
willing,
idea.
50 for the 50th is a great start.
Right.
Become a friend of WAMFT in that way and come join us at all of our events and online or in person or both if we can. We love to see everybody. Um, and come ask me questions anytime.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rochelle. Thank you for all you've done here. And so excited to see what the next 50 years of WAMP look like.
Let's go. Thanks, Trevor.
All right. I'll stop.